Okay. All right. So welcome formally. I'm welcoming you formally. So we're at week 23, day one. We're almost to the end of the biomechanics book by Jules Mitchell, as Manny was saying. Yeah, she has a lot of really good information and science-based information about yoga asana practice. So we're going to continue with chapter 5, which is adaptations, tissue adaptation. But the interesting thing is, as I was going through this chapter, is
Is that the
there's not,
anatomy train?
huh?
Is that the anatomy trains or
No, we're
biomechanics?
not on anatomy trains. We're still on this book.
Biomechanics, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we got a little bit more to go, as I discovered while I was going through this chapter. So chapter 5 is tissue adaptation. I thought it was going to be more about what you're saying, Manny, is loading, but it's actually not. But it does give us a good foundation going forward. And then we're going to probably take another day to talk about tissue adaptation in the sense of the yoga asana practice. How do we load? How do we increase load capacity, and how do we increase load tolerance? Those are the two parameters that we're going to be after. Right. So just to start, we want to remember that connective tissue is living, changing, and adapting. Tissue resists and surrenders to deformation. Right. So resisting change or resisting the change of shape, that's the stiffness that we talked about. And then as the surrender is just that easing, that letting go feeling of the connective tissue. Tissue adapts to load within parameters. And we add within parameters because we know that if we exceed certain limits, then that's when we have injury. Okay, so I'm gonna use mainly the figures that she has in the book to just get more of a scope of tissue behavior, and then the next discussion we have will go more into how to apply this. Right, so this very interesting figure here is putting together the different ways that structure, function, and pain can present in our bodies. So usually when you think of pain in a yoga asana, what is your first thought? Like, let's say you go into a forward fold and you have pain in your glute, for example, or at your sits bones. What's your mind gonna think?
Sometimes with me, when there is a little pain, depending on the source of the pain. If it's in the insert, I back down a little bit because I might pull something there. So that's my way of doing
So
things.
probably in your mind, you might be going into injury, right? So
Yes.
it's telling you to
I
back
am
off.
defending my body from that possibility.
Good.
And then breathe, normalize my breathing and try again.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it will improve.
Mm-hmm.
You slowly do it. But if it's the pain is there, I just stop where just before that point. Maybe next time.
Right. How about you, Kyla? What would that mean to you if you were experiencing pain somewhere? Have you experienced pain at any point in your yoga practice?
Yeah. Usually I feel pain when I'm, you know, feeling the strain from, my muscles really. Um, so either when I'm stretching and it's like really deep, or if I'm like holding myself up like, like a warrior two or something and I'm trying to get really low, then I might feel that burn.
Mm-hmm. So pain could represent work, like Like you're actually feeling challenged. Yeah. Okay. Right. Good. I agree with all of those. And what the book talked about is there can be a loss of function, which is what Manny is explaining, without pain, for example. So there's all these different ways. Pain is not straightforward one thing or another. Just like two of you, the both of your descriptions of pain were different. Yours was Kyla was a result of challenge, and yours, Manny, was a warning, like, oh, you could be going into injury, right? So if we look at this diagram, this section right here, is painless degenerative tendon prone to structural damage, right? No pain, but the tendon is compromised. It's maybe weakened or underdeveloped, underloaded, and it's susceptible to structural damage, but there's no pain. So you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know that, oh, this tendon or this part of my body is susceptible to injury because there's no warning. There's no pain. Okay. And B right here, it's underloaded, painless tendon prone to overloading. So here you have another scenario where there's pain. Let's see, no pain, and the tendon can be overloaded because it's not been challenged enough, right? So the difference between A and B, A is there's some kind of a vulnerability having to do with degenerative state, and in B, it's just not trained enough. But in both cases, there's no pain. In C, there's painless, underloaded, and degenerative tendon. So it's a overlap between A and B. So here you have a tendon that's somewhat compromised because it's degenerative and it's not being challenged enough. But it's still painless. It's not presenting itself. And then D, we have painful, underloaded, and degenerative tendon. So there's some pain there. And it's degenerative and it's underloaded. And then E, finally, is very rare, but there's a painful tendon with good structure and function. But it still happens. Unexplained pain. We don't know why. Okay. Any questions on that?
So when do you put the yoga? What we're discussing about the pain in yoga.
Well, in yoga, it would be underloaded if you have tendons that aren't being challenged enough, right? In the case of yoga, as far as degenerative tendon state, well, that could be anything. That could be genetics. That could be nutrition. That could be age. That could be due to any number of things. Right? And you could have in E, you could have yoga here. You could have a good structure, good function, but there's still pain. But it's not degenerative and it's not underloaded. Okay? Make sense? So it just shows us the unpredictability and that there could be things underlying that we don't know about. Okay. So tissue injury comes in 3 grades. Grade 1 is just a few damaged fibers. Grade 2 is a partial tear. Grade 3 is a full tear. Grade 3 is usually with very sudden, fast, powerful movements, like sports, like soccer, where you do a lot of really quick movements side to side, or impact sports like football, for example. That's when you can have these kinds of injuries.
So how do you classify the injury that causes hematoma? I had that years ago when I was doing more Ashtanga yoga. On my straddle, I think I forced myself to go down because the teacher pushed my lower back down. And the next thing I
Hematoma,
know, there's a hematoma on my inner thighs. I think
isn't
my
hematoma bruising?
yeah, it's for a while I cannot even do triangle because of the injury of
Mhm. So maybe it was a few damaged fibers.
Mhm. So
I
it's
don't think
grade two,
you didn't.
grade
No,
grade
did
one.
you have a tear? Did you have a tear?
I didn't have it checked, but I just put a bandage on it because it has hematoma. It's
It
really
was
bruised around
bruised. Yeah.
and reddish.
It's hard
And
to say. You would actually need an MRI to really be able to tell if there was a tear. Yeah.
so that's grade one, two, and three level of injury must also be verified through MRI.
Yeah, especially I mean, you could have very small partial, damaged fibers. You could have the tear you would probably feel for sure, a partial tear. Full tear, that usually accompanies like a sound, is what I've heard people say. So, but yeah, I don't think that happens in yoga. In yoga, most of the injuries, according to the book, happens at the
Yes,
or
insertions.
insertion or where the tendon changes composition, like going from tendon to muscle,
Yeah.
where there's a change of tissue composition because it's more vulnerable, I guess, there. So tissue repair comes in 3 phases. And I wanted to show you this so that you would know when someone comes to class and say, oh, I have a little inflammation here or whatever. Then you would kind of know where they are in the process of healing. Because it's not really for us to, um, what's the word, diagnose, but it's good for you to know the phases of healing. So phase one is the inflammatory response, and that happens right after the injury. It lasts about 3 to 7 days. And you're going to have pain, redness, swelling, maybe a temperature increase, vasodilation. And look, there's hematoma right there, phase one. Um, and then there's these different responses. You have cells and macrophages that come into that area, and they have all these different functions. Some things are going to start building, some things are going to take away waste products. The scar is going to start building, and then type 3 collagen is going to be produced. Then phase two is repair and proliferation. It's about after begins days 3 to 7. Okay, so it starts during the same inflammatory response state and lasts for about 4 to 6 weeks. Cytokines are released. There's an increase in certain protein. There's high water content. Whoops, sorry. I was trying to move you so I could see. And again, macrophage and mast cells are building into fibers, bundle and fibers. And then phase three begins around 4 to 6 weeks and lasts 1 to 3 years. Now, this was fascinating. This is a remodeling and maturation. And this is when type 1 collagen begins to replace type 3 collagen. And you get the reorganization of collagen fibers into the axis of loading. So you're rebuilding here, phase one and phase two. Phase three is when you're organizing. Does that make sense, you guys? So phase one, phase two, you're just laying down the collagen. It's like delivering the material. And then phase three is when you're actually going to rebuild. I mean, I'm sure there's crossover, but the phase 3 remodeling maturation, that's the longest. It takes a long time. So, how would you characterize um, a return to yoga practice after an injury? Let's say you got an injury on a day. What could you expect? How could you expect to return to practice in the next weeks or days?
Based on your presentation, I think, although I didn't know that then, more or less, I avoided the poses that cause it.
Right. Well,
I didn't do that.
you need to give the inflammation time to
You avoid
settle
those poses.
down. Yeah. And since you had the
Like I did not
hematoma,
stop practicing. I continued practicing even though I have that injury.
mhm,
Just avoided those poses.
sure. Well, that area is not probably not ready for it.
Yeah.
But if you see like around this this phase here it lasts 4 to 6 weeks, so is it it's not really super cut and dry. You just kind of have to see how you're doing and see. But if you look
Maybe
at the rebuilding phase, that's 1 to 3 years. So you need to keep working on that area according to this so that you can reorganize the collagen, right?
maybe for another person takes more time, more than that, because I
Maybe.
remember it took me more
Yeah.
than that period before I was able to recover.
Yeah. Any questions on this? No. So let's say you have somebody coming back to your class. Let's say that they injured themselves in some kind of sport. Maybe a not a full tear, but little partial tear maybe. So the first week,
How do you classify the sprain? Wrist sprain or ankle sprain? How do you where do you classify that in the injury list that we issued?
um,
It's tendon. Is it ligament? It's tendon injury mostly.
is there any tearing?
No, how do you classify the general sprain? That is very very common among athletes.
Yeah. Probably
Tennis,
grade one. Probably
grade one.
grade one. Yeah. I mean, the main integrity of the tendon and the muscle is still there, right? There's no tearing. There's no
I
tearing.
do not. I'm not qualified to do that. But
Me
in my
neither.
case, when I had a sprain, ankle sprain, the doctor recommended that I demobilize it for a week or two. So instead of just putting a bandage, he put a plaster on it, and so it's not really moving.
So
Then after,
that's changed. I don't know about ankle sprains, but like what the book says, and I know I've heard from people who have like a hip replacement, that within a day they get them walking, they get them moving. So it's really changed over time how they treat um, swelling and that first 7 days. It used to be immobilization, yeah. But now they actually encourage movement. So I'm not clear on everything. This is just the foundational information so that you know, let's say you have somebody coming into your class and they had some kind of sports injury and there's inflammation. Inflammation, I think, is the one thing that is limiting because it actually changes the range of motion of your joint. because of the swelling. So necessarily there's going to be less motion. And usually like an ankle sprain, you're not supposed to bear weight on it.
Because
So, but,
that,
but
that kind of a scenario when somebody is injured because of sports and they come to the studio, I immediately ask them to go to a physical therapist because we are not
yes,
qualified to handle that. So I will politely tell him, but there are certain protocols because I've been into PT also and some
Mhm.
rehab. They follow certain protocols which we are not. There are brands in yoga that they say about yoga therapy, but we're not. I'm not yet into that. The yoga therapy. It's another course
Right.
I think offered in the States, but here in the Philippines, there are some, but I do not trust them because they're not even physical therapists. They did not even, at least
Yes.
you should finish that course. And
Exactly. That's what I was getting at is you would have to say, and the reason why I say that is because they will do that because they think, oh, I have an injury. I need to do yoga. Yoga is going to be healing. Yoga is going to help me feel better. Or I have this pain. Yoga is going to heal. It's going to help me heal. So they do that. They think, oh yeah, I can't do my regular stuff, my regular workout, but maybe I can do yoga because they still want to move usually, or they think it's going to heal them. So you need to talk to them. You need to say, have you been to a doctor? What is your level of pain? What is your range of motion? Are you able to bear weight? Are you able to move this joint in its full range of motion, or ankle, or whatever it is, your shoulder? Um, have you been cleared by a doctor? Have you seen a PT? And then I've mentioned this before. If they have seen a PT, then you can ask them, well, what kinds of movements does your PT say you can or can't do? And then
actually, you can get a document where the protocols that what the things that the PT did to them. What are
yeah,
those exercises? I asked them those things.
to show you
Then
that. Yeah.
and they have to show it to me because and then you have to get a recommendation from your PT.
Mhm.
What are the movements that you have to avoid? Because I'm
Right.
not going to diagnose you and tell you what you can and you
Exactly.
can't do. Let
Exactly.
the PT. So I know the protocols. Most of the protocols of the PT, they're using yoga poses as well. They're just
Yes.
very descriptive, like our bird dog or sunbird. They call it, they have a different way of calling it, but I know that's it. But you have to give it to me.
Yeah.
Uh,
Exactly.
some studios are so bold to taking them. I do not. I do not. I do not want that kind of responsibility.
Responsibility. I know. Okay, and then for our reference, I wanted to show you this because I think it's very helpful to describe this different biomotor abilities. Strength is the amount of weight you can move. Power is how fast you can move that weight. Speed is how fast you can move yourself or a limb. Endurance is the length of time you can sustain muscle contraction. Agility is the quality and speed that you can change direction. Coordination is your ability to integrate complex movements. Balance is the ability to maintain equilibrium. And flexibility is the amount of range of motion.
Very good. Huh? He was able
Yeah.
to dissect it in that manner. Huh?
Yeah. I think it's really good to particularly understand about strength and power and speed, because these are things that we don't usually address as much, especially power, because we don't do anything fast. Um, so if you can, try to incorporate something in your movement training that will help you develop power and speed. I mean, it's not necessary, but I think it's a good idea. All right, the reality of pain and tissue damage. So we talked earlier about, I feel like I need to wait for one's an important discussion. Wait, let's just wait for a moment. I'm going to pause
That's okay.
the recording. Oh, there you are. You're back. Okay.
I was back. I didn't realize my video was off. I was like,
Oh, okay.
I'm back. Oh,
That's
but
okay.
I'm here.
Okay. So she's waving to you. So I thought this was a really interesting point because we always equate pain with tissue damage. But actually, she doesn't even talk about pain in this chapter because she says it's really complex. And if you remember when we talked about connective tissue, tendons do not have pain receptors. They don't, there's no innervation there. There's no nerve endings that go there. So how could we attribute pain to the connective tissue? It's kind of complicated. So she doesn't even discuss pain. But what she does talk about is that pain and tissue damage do not always go together. And she cited a bunch of studies that describe that. So in a study of 51 men aged 40 to 70 years old, 96% of them had abnormality in their shoulders. In 53 adults, 45 to 60-year-olds, 72% of them had labral tears in their shoulders. 39 pro hockey players, out of 39 pro hockey players, 77% had hip pathology, so something off with their hips. In 1,211 adults, 20 to 70 years old, 87.6 had bulging discs. And out of a sample of 3,110 adults, 96% of the people in their 80s had spinal disc degeneration, and 37% of the ones in their 20s had spinal disc degeneration. But none of these people had any pain. They were all asymptomatic, no symptoms. So how could we explain that? Right? No pain, but yet all of these things going on. Well, one of the things she talked about is this donut tendon analogy. In the donut analogy of tendons, this section A is healthy tissue, and B is the abnormal tissue. The abnormal tissue is protected by all of the healthy tissue. So in other words, even though all of these people had these abnormalities, these tears, these bulging discs, more of their body was doing well than not doing well. And so it supported whatever they had going on. Right? Does that make sense, everybody?
So I had before my disc herniation, maybe I have bulging disc for a long time and I ignored it.
It's
My problem
possible.
is not just bulging disc. My problem is herniation. The the gel inside my spine between the disc, no? Then in the middle of that, like a donut, there is a gel in the middle. Mine, because of too much bulging, the gel herniated. So it came out of the disc. And that's
Yes.
the thing that is hitting my sciatic
Nerves.
nerve.
Yeah.
Yeah, my nerve. So in that study, she didn't mention about herniation. She's only talking about bulging.
Bulging. Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
Mine is bulging and then herniation.
Right. Maybe you went to that point of no return.
Yes.
Yeah. You may have been compromised for a long time before you actually.
Actually, it's still there. In my latest test, it's still herniated. It's just that I was maintaining my posture.
Mhm.
I'm, it's you can't really cure it. You just have to adjust your body
Right.
to that situation.
Yeah. And I think it's amazing, actually, that we probably all have, I'm sure we all have imperfections in our body, but we're able to keep going, that there's enough support from the rest of our body, enough mechanisms in place that we can keep going. We don't have to be perfectly created in order to function well. All right. So what is the safety approach to yoga? Is to increase capacity and tolerance for load, and to do it in various types of loading. And these are the various types of loading. There's tension, right? Two directions. So this is stretch, pulling in two different directions. Compression, going in the other way. Shear, which is one part going in one direction, another part going in another direction. Bending, and torsion. So this kind of twisting. I want you
Where
to
do you
look at
classify twisting? Where do you
Hmm?
classify twisting? Twisting motion. Where do you qualify? Where do you put it? Then torsion or shearing?
So it can be both. So it depends on what part of, let's say if we're talking about spinal twists, it's going to be probably on your lower back. It's going to be more of this because of the limited motion in the spiral in the lower back, and then it's going to be maybe more in the thoracic area. But then if you look at the triangle pose, let me see if I can find a picture of a triangle pose.
No, we can imagine it. Don't worry.
Okay, imagine.
Okay.
Okay, so
We can imagine the triangle.
imagine the triangle pose. So you have your lumbar spine is actually rotating down.
Yes.
The thoracic is actually rotating up. So there's that right there going on. And it's not just at the junction between the lumbar and the thoracic, right? It's distributed through through each section. If that makes sense. So you have the lower back, maybe there's a little bit less or a little bit more downward rotation, depending on what part of the lumbar spine you're talking about. And then maybe a little less, a little more upward rotation, depending on what part of the thoracic spine you're talking about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because the size of the vertebrae are different. The thicker, bigger vertebrae at the bottom of the lumbar spine are not going to rotate as much. And then as you go up the spine, they get smaller, so there's going to be more movement. All right, so I want you to look at these and think about, okay, what kind of asanas represent these different types of loading? So shear we talked about.
Or a combination of some of them. Combination of 2 to 3.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And that's how we can increase capacity and tolerance for load in the different areas of our body, because different things are going on at the same time. So in triangle pose, you have these rotations going on in your spine, but in the legs, you have tension going on. You have stretch.
Yeah.
You have stretch going on. How about compression? That one I find a little trickier.
On the there is a little bit of compression on the lower side of your body where you need to really engage the oblique a lot. The lower side, the triangle.
You mean your
The
feet?
torso on the lower torso that's facing the ground. Yeah. You need to a little bit contract your obliques so that you need to recruit that, or otherwise it will be very hard for you to maintain, to continue to sustain in the triangle. So you are stretching your oblique on the upper side of oblique, and then you are contracting a little bit your obliques on the lower side of your body, on the other side.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I was thinking spine, I was thinking more joints, but yes, muscular, yes, compression.
Yes.
So we have tension, we have compression. I was thinking joints more like weight bearing, like compression moves. So if you were to talk about inversions, so going upside down, you're changing the direction of compression on the spine. So when you're upright, the compression of gravity is going down. When you're in inversion, you're changing the compression
Going to your hips. Yeah.
in the other direction, right? So let's say this way, it's on the top part of the vertebrae, the anterior, and then when you go upside down, it's going to be on the superior, the bottom parts of the vertebrae. So in a way, that's a good argument for the benefit of inversion, because not only does it decompress your spine when you go upside down, but it also creates compression in the other direction, opposite to the usual gravity. And whenever we have any kind of tension or load on the joint, that's when it encourages bone growth. That's how it encourages bone growth. It activates those osteoclasts, those cells that build bone. And
What activates bone growth?
Osteoblast.
load.
Oh,
Yeah. Like bearing weight. So if you change the direction of the load on the spine, you're going to activate a different part of the bone growth, the bone, right? Adaptation, bone adaptation. Let's see, what about bending? That's an interesting one. Bending. Do we ever bend?
Back or forward?
We bend back or forward. How about like in a bind? Like when you have a binding pose like this.
Yes.
So you've got this grip, right? You're gripping, and my knee is pressing into the middle of my arm. So my arm's not actually going to change shape exactly, because that would be breaking it, but it is exerting a bending type of pressure on it. Yeah. So, and then, there's no research to say, oh yeah, that's going to help build bone, or that's going to help your joints get stronger, adaptation in your joints. But I feel like it's doing something. It's activating some kind of adaptation, I feel like.
Like in a bind like that. In a bind, like in the Marichasana, say the one that requires the bind, the A. What's happened to your glenohumeral joint? Is it bending, or is it actually there is torsion? Because you are
Yeah, there's probably torsion,
you're
there's
moving.
probably compression, there's probably shear, there's a bunch of
Yeah,
stuff.
happening there.
Yeah, and which can only, I imagine, if it's done within the parameters of loading, right? Not to the point of no return, that it could only help strengthen and increase the tendon function, the stiffness, right? The ability of the tendon to bounce back, to resist deformation. Remember
It's not
that?
only in the binding; it's also in the eagle arms or the eagle face, cow face.
Yes, that one, this one right here. Also,
Cow
this
face.
one right here is good. The hands behind the
The
lower
clasp
back.
behind the back.
Yeah. So anytime that we're challenging the joints, lotus pose for the knees and the ankles. Also, half lotus, if we can't go into full lotus.
People are always thinking of the knees when it comes to lotus.
Mhm.
I read somewhere. I cannot remember the author. it's actually more of an hip opening rather than knee flexion. So if you have a very tight hip, don't even think of doing lotus. So it's more of, if you cannot do the Bandha Konasana or the cobbler's pose well, you
Mhm.
will have a you will only injure your knees if you do that. So you are now twisting, putting load on your knees, which they are not supposed to. Only very limited loading on the knee. So if your hips must be open. It
Yeah,
tend to
they
take.
must have some movement in there, but also keep in mind that, remember we talked about hips can have different anatomy. So it
Yes.
may not be that they're tight, but it may be that the orientation of the femur won't allow
Yes.
you to go into that position too. So,
Yes.
and if you force it, it might compensate in the knee.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. Yeah. So just be contented on
Yes,
up or that
be
the pose. Yeah.
respectful of your limitations.
Yeah.
So let's see, what's my next? Yeah, so our next discussion, we're not going to talk about that today, is loading. Well, we just did a little bit, loading in yoga asanas and what is optimal loading.
Or the application of the loading.
Yes, we're going to apply the loading. So mainly what she said is we need to focus our yoga on increasing capacity and tolerance for load. Capacity and tolerance for load. So we're going to talk about that maybe next week. And if I can get to it, I'll do it this Thursday. And so let's take a quick little break and then we will have a practice. Okay? Go ahead and get ourselves ready. I'm going to pause the recording. All right, so go ahead and lay down, bend your knees, and take a few moments to breathe. So what we're going to work on is lower extremity. We're going to do legs, feet, ankles, a little bit of calves and hamstrings and quads just because they're part of the leg, but it's not our main focus. So one of the I guess it's complaints that people get is issues at the hamstring insertion into the ischial tuberosity, the sits bones. So, we do a lot of forward folding in our yoga practice, but maybe not enough cultivation of hamstring strength. So we do a lot of hamstring stretches, but maybe not enough of hamstring strengthening. So we're going to just give you a couple of examples for that. So to start with, though, let's take a few moments to breathe and settle in. So you're going into your yoga practice, even though this is kind of workshopy and we're doing teacher training, you still want to bring that same level of inner focus and mindfulness, presence, awareness, whatever you're doing. So first, just relax your toes, your ankles, your knees, your hips, your fingers, your wrists, your elbows, your shoulders. And then align your spine, tailbone to crown, lengthening. Allow those ribs to expand at your inhale and the belly to drop down at your exhale. All right, so let's hug your knees into your chest. Just gently rock side to side. We're just going to ease into it. And let's do happy baby. Let's do a number 4, ankle onto thigh. And while you're here, just circle at the ankle to warm up the ankles. So you reverse the circle. And let's switch it out, other ankle under thigh. Then you can keep circling the ankles. Then uncross your leg, take a nice easy twist. Right. And take an easy twist, other side. And lift the knees, place your feet flat on the mat. We'll go through some bridge variations. So your feet are parallel, just a few inches of your tailbone, your hips, pressing firmly into the mat with your feet. Lift your hips, starting with your tailbone, and roll all the way up to the bridge pose. While you're here in the bridge pose, try to slide your feet forward, but they don't actually move. So you keep them where they are. Just try to slide your feet forward. So create some tension. We're talking about tension. Create some tension so that you're engaging more legs, glutes, ankles. And then lift your toes, just the toes, and press the ball of your foot. Here, trying to engage a little more ankle. And then keep that engagement and relax your toes down. Then set your toes down. A couple more breaths. And roll yourself down. Take an inhale. Exhale, roll yourself back up. Again, try to slide your feet forward, but you actually just keep them in the same spot. Get some tension in the legs. Now lift your heels and try to press the top of your foot forward. So we want to get into the ankle. Good. Make sure your big toe is still really grounded. And it might feel a little funny on your outer leg, so the outer calf, that's where we kind of forget to engage. So try to engage the outer calf by, let's see, keeping your ankle directly above the big toe. So instead of letting it go off to the side, you want to keep that. So keep your heels up as you roll down. Roll down. And then take the heels down. Good. Bring your knees in, circle at the ankle, release the calves. So bring your knees in and just circle the feet. Sorry, circle the feet. And reverse the circle. All right. So set your feet back down. Let's do a little bit more with the ankles and the lower leg. Good. So press the feet into the floor, lift your hips. Go all the way up. And then lift your heels, press the tops of your feet forward. Now you're going to draw the heels towards each other, like you want to tap them like Judy Garland. So bring your heels together. Maybe they touch, and then lower them down, not to touch the floor, just a few inches from the floor, and then circle them out, and then back up, and then back together. So you're going to create circles with your heels in the air. Yes, exactly. Keep the hips up and just circle at the heels. And then reverse the circle, other direction. A little tricky, little mind game. One more circle. And then lift those heels way up. Press the tops of your feet forward. Lift, 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 lift high. Keep them way up high there as you roll down your spine. And then the heels come down. So bring your knees in, circle at the ankle. And reverse the circle. All right, now let's move over to the wall. So slide your mat over there. You're gonna be putting your feet against the wall, so you might not want to be on the window, on the door there, Manny. Can you go to the left of your door? Because you're gonna put your feet on the wall. I don't think you want to put it on your glass door. Yeah. Yeah, that's better. Can you turn your camera, Kyla, so I can see you? I can see your mat. I can't quite see you. All right, so you're gonna lay down. Yeah, if you can turn yourself a little bit there, thank you. Go ahead and lay down your feet towards the wall, and you're gonna place your feet on the wall, and your legs will be 90 degrees. Yeah, so scoot your bottom a little more towards the wall, Manny. There you go. Okay, so you're gonna press into the wall or your door with your feet. Perfect. Yeah, that's great, Kyla. So go ahead and lay down. Your legs are gonna make 90 degrees, and your feet are gonna be on your door there. All right, so we're gonna bridge up and down just 3 times, pressing your feet into that wall. So press the feet into the wall and lift your hips. That's it. Keep pressing your feet forward to that wall. So you want to create that compression. Hold it for another moment and then roll it down. Don't collapse down, roll down with control, and then roll back up with control. So don't relax, keep everything working. Good. And roll yourself down. And roll back up. Stay here, and we're gonna pulse up with the tailbone is gonna pulse up. 10, 9, squeeze from underneath. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold it. And second set, pulse. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold, squeeze. And last one, pulse. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, and 1. Hold and roll yourself down. Good. Take a breath. Do you feel your legs working? Do you feel your hamstrings working? Yeah. All right, so we're going to do one more variation of this. On the exhale, lift all the way up to the bridge. And this time you're going to extend both legs so your legs are straight. You got to walk your feet up the wall a little bit. Yes, just like that. Good. And then we're going to pulse up here. Pulse up. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold just for a moment. And pulse up. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. Almost done, guys. Last one. Pulse up. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold it. Really dial it in. Feel those muscles working. And roll yourself down. Hug your knees in. Good job. All right, you're just going to turn your body so that your feet can be on your floor. So I think you just have to turn 90 degrees, Manny, your feet towards me. And then Kyla, can you turn? I see there's a white piece of furniture there, but can you turn so that your feet are on the floor and your back is on your mat? So so that bring your feet to the right. Turn, yeah, that way. Turn your body. Yeah. Can you grab your blanket? Sorry, I should have told you to ask you to bring your blanket with you. Sorry. All right. Yeah, just like, great. So get your blanket, lay back down, just like you're about to go into bridge pose. So put your blanket on the wood floor. Put your blanket on the wood floor. And you're going to step on it. So place it under your feet. Yes, just like that. All right. So you're going to be straightening your legs, Kyla, so you want to go to where you can straighten your legs.
I know this drill.
Do you know this one?
Should I be, do I need to be near the wall anymore? Or can I go back to my normal place?
You can go back to normal spot.
Okay, I'll just go back to my normal place then.
Okay.
Use the
You
paper
use-
plates or
Oh, perfect. Yes, exactly. So you know what we're doing, Manny, yeah?
This is a Pilates exercise.
Is it a Pilates move? I don't remember this from
Yeah.
Pilates.
Yeah, when they use this.
Yes,
hard.
exactly. It's hard, right?
Hard, yeah.
Yeah.
Your hamstring will burn.
Yes. It seems so simple, but yeah. Okay, good. Perfect, Kyla. So you're going to lay down, you're going to bend your knees and place your feet on that blanket. All right, so how many reps do you think, Manny? Can we do 10? Three sets of 10?
I can do 10, one leg at a time. But if you do both legs, oh my God, that's really going to burn.
Shall we do 5?
If you can make 5, 6, really.
6? Okay, let's try 6. All right, so go ahead and lay down, Kyla.
Both
Right.
legs at the same time?
I think so. I mean, we can try one at a time, but I keep my hips down. You lift your hips up. Yeah.
Yeah, in the Pilates, it keeps up.
Oh, okay, because you're adding the core. Well, let's try it with the hips down and both legs. Let's try that.
I can do a lot of that.
Huh?
I can do a lot of that if no hips up.
Oh, okay. Well, let's do 10 then. Let's do 10. Hips down. And then slide your feet forward, Kyla and Manny, until your legs are straight, and then bring them back in. Bend your knees, bring your feet back in. Yes, let's do 10. Is that enough of a challenge?
The heels are the one pressing down, isn't it?
The heels? Okay. Okay, go ahead. So that's 1. So keep going. And bring it in 2. Good. Keep going. Go do 10. And try to do controlled movement the whole time. Even when you're straight, keep that control. think that's about 10. Okay, how'd that feel? Is that enough work?
Yeah, to add more progression, you just have to lift your hips back up a little bit, even a little bit, to
Even a
engage the
little
glute.
bit? Okay, let's try. Because we did lift our hips on the wall. I'm not sure how your blanket will do, Kyla, but let's try. So lift your hips.
Towel or this towel will do.
Yeah. And then slide the feet forward and then bring them back in. Oh, yeah, you did pretty good. Woo! I know. Maybe don't slide all the way straight, Kyla, because your blanket is really might be really slippery. So just go as far forward and then bring it back in. Right? Ah, no. Okay. All right, so you can kind of experiment with that. I know that looks like a really slidey blanket, Kyla. So let me see your one leg at a time, Manny. Let me see that. Can you show me?
Hips up or hips down.
Hips up,
Hips
just like you do it. So you keep one leg bent. Oh, I see. Okay.
so that what you can do is straight if you want, both of them.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
so up so that the shoulder does not help it.
Yeah.
It's really easy. And it doesn't have to be high. Just lift
Slow.
it up a little bit. Contract your abs a little bit.
Yeah.
Your hamstring will burn after 3 or 4.
Yeah. Maybe don't slide your legs all the way straight, Kyla. So lift your hips. Try just 3. Slide forward and then back. But only go as far forward as you can come back in. Ah, yeah. Yeah, that's hard. Tell me what's happening, Kyla.
I don't know what it is, but it's like I can't even slide my legs back in.
Maybe the blanket is not slippery enough. Maybe.
I don't know. It's pretty slippery. It's like a furry type of blanket.
Okay.
I don't know. It's just really hard.
Okay. Don't worry.
I can understand you, Kyla.
Yeah. It
Like
is
my
hard.
hamstrings can't pull it back.
Isn't that
Yeah.
interesting?
Yeah.
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 Sometimes, Amy, we do it with a Pilates ball. You
Mhm.
step on the Pilates ball and you roll it forward and you roll it back.
And then you roll it back. Yeah.
When you have the Pilates ball near your butt, you press on it to lift your hips up.
You lift your hips,
I can
To
roll
lift
like
your,
the yoga ball out and back in, but I don't think I can do.
the blanket.
but Kyla, this is not a Pilates. This is not a yoga. It's more of Pilates.
It's Pilates.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's Pilates.
But it's something you can incorporate in a yoga class.
Yeah.
You can do it as something they either a warm up or a prep.
I call this in my practice progression. You
Yeah, you
want to
can
progress?
progress to that.
Yeah, from the bridge, because the bridge, that's why it's called the bridge, from shoulder all the way to your hips. You're creating a bridge there. But in Pilates, it's only the hips that you lift up, hip press. They call it the hip press. Your shoulders are down, and the shoulders are not helping in the movement. You just isolate the hips there.
Mhm.
That's the principle of Pilates.
Yeah, you have to keep the shoulders still and you're just using your lower
Yeah. So
body.
they ask us to raise our hands so that the hands will not help in the movement. It is,
I see.
yeah.
Okay, let me get one more thing I wanted to talk to you guys about. It's get the
That is where yoga is quite weak in terms of the hamstring strengthening.
yeah.
We are weak there. Yeah.
So you can add that. You can add that in.
Yeah.
Um, Okay, so I'm going to show you just one more thing before we are done for the day. Remember, I said earlier that usually the sites of
Can I turn?
injury, the sites of
Can I,
injury, huh?
can I turn now? Do I have to? Can I turn my camera now?
Yes, yeah. Yeah.
Because it's fronting the television, it's a bigger screen. That's why.
Okay, no
I have to
worries.
tell
So
you.
this is from the book. Whoops, where is it? Okay, right here. Remember that we said that usually injury happens at the insertion point
Yes.
and at wherever there's a change in composition from tendon to muscle tissue or other tissue. So here are the insertion compression sites where, so for the hamstring, it's the ischial tuberosity and the movement is hip flexion. So this is the forward fold. For the Achilles tendon at the calcaneus, it's dorsiflexion when we flex our ankle, right? Like in down dog when we're trying to get the heels down. The gluteus medius is at the greater trochanter, that's at the top of the femur, and that's hip adduction when you bring your legs in towards each other, your inner thighs. And then for the quadriceps, it's at the femoral condyle, so the front top of the femur. No, sorry, the knee. So at the bottom of the knee, or the bottom of the femur at the knee, and that's at knee flexion. So when you bend your knee deep, like in the deep squat. And then the adductor longus is at the pubic ramus. That's the front of the pubic bone, and that's hip adduction. So when you get and hip extension. So taking the leg back and off to the side. And then the long head biceps for the arm as the bicipital groove, and that's during shoulder extension when we have the arm behind us. And then the pectoralis major is at the humeral tuberosity at the top of the humerus bone. That's in shoulder external rotation. So same position with the arm behind, but with that rotation of the humerus, external rotation. And then the supraspinatus, which is on the shoulder blade at the greater tuberosity, shoulder adduction, meaning when you bring your shoulders in towards each other, right? So I want you to think for a moment what positions or what poses these represent on the right side here. I gave you the first one, hip flexion. And the proximal hamstring, it attaches to the ischial tuberosity, the sit bone. So what position are we talking about at hip flexion? Where the insertional compression site is at the sit bone.
You said forward fold on that one?
Yeah, that's the one. So if we want to protect against that, protect against having any kind of tendon issues at the ischial tuberosity where the hamstring inserts, we want to strengthen that hamstring, right? So that's what we were just doing. All right, and then the Achilles tendon, we did some ankle work. That's at when you flex your feet and down dog. So we want to do something like that. And also not to force the heels down. If they don't go down, they don't go down. They eventually can over time, but we don't want to force. Honey, can you turn that down first? Is that you, Doug? Oh, I can hear something. Can you turn? Ah, thank you. And then how about hip adduction? What kind of yoga pose would have hip adduction?
The most iconic, as far as I can know, is the eagle legs, when you do the eagle legs.
Yeah,
That's
we
really
don't do a lot of
good.
adduction. That's the
Yeah,
one we
with,
do. Yeah.
Maybe
yeah.
like low squat when you press against your elbows, you squeeze in.
That's
Oh
more of
yeah,
a
yeah.
rotation. It's more of a rotation.
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 Yeah, I guess in it. Let's see. Yeah,
Are you familiar with
external
the
it's external
with
rotation. Hmm?
with a fire lag? Are you familiar with the fire lag pose?
Which
When
one?
you're the double pigeon, the fire lag pose or the pigeon. Fire lag, they call it in yin yoga. I don't know what we call it in the yoga in vinyasa. When you have the knee on top of the opposite ankle, they stuck together like a
Knee
fire
on
lag.
knee on top of the opposite
Like,
ankle?
fire log legs with like you
Yeah,
Fire
fire lag
log.
leg.
kind of stack your calves, kind of.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you stack your,
That's I think that's external rotation also.
it's rotation external.
Yeah. Like
The
squat
only position adduction I can think of is
is
yeah
equal.
the eagle, yeah, the eagle,
Unless
and
you
and the cow face also.
huh?
When you stack your knees together in the cow legs, the cow face legs.
Oh yes, like this. This is
Yeah,
this. I think what
cow
he's
face.
talking about is this one.
Yeah, cow face. Yeah,
Yeah, that one.
the cow face legs.
Yeah. It's got some rotation also, but yeah,
What is that one called, or what do you call that one?
cow face. This
Cow
is the
face.
bottom of cow face pose. The other part is this. But I can't reach my fingers. But you would, if you got your fingers in the grip, that would be cow face.
I need some working out before I can even touch my fingers there.
Yeah.
It's a good thing you can even do that, without initial
So,
warm up. I need to
yeah.
be my shoulders need to be warm up well before I can even reach my fingers.
Mhm.
I can do that one, but I think my shoulders are pretty loose.
Yeah, you have really flexible shoulders. You can do,
Young people are very very flexible in their
yeah.
shoulders.
So another hip adduction would be if you squeeze your legs together in like chair pose.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be hip adduction. Knee flexion, that one's easy. Squat, chair. Hip abduction,
There's so many of them. The most
standing.
iconic is the goddess pose.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. High squat, I call it, or goddess, yeah. Also standing with hand to foot, possibly. Let's see.
Your one leg in also in three pose, the upper leg
Right,
in the three pose. Yeah.
yeah. There's a
The gate pose. Yeah.
gate pose, which is on your one knee and then the other leg is off to the side.
There
Okay.
is one in Pilates. They call it the fire hydrant.
Oh yeah, fire hydrant. Yep.
Like a dog peeing on a fire hydrant.
Yeah. Yeah. And then hip extension. What would be a good one for that?
When you're pulling your back leg. In Warrior 3, you do a lot of, in Warriors, you do a lot of toes extension when your back leg are always in extension in Highlands. That's why the Warriors are opposites. One is on a flex mode, the other leg is on a extension mode. So
Extension. Yep.
it's
You can
a
also,
good example of that.
yeah. And then shoulder extension, hands
Yeah.
behind. Yeah.
The hand behind the back, those are part of the extension.
Yeah.
The
And then
clasp hand behind the back, yeah.
external rotation, like when you go into dancer's pose and you take your hand
Yes.
behind you, you turn
Yeah.
your thumb back.
Yeah.
And then shoulder adduction again.
Yeah, the eagle.
All right. So those are the ones that you would, if you overdo, I guess you could say, those are where the insertions are that could be compromised. I don't know what
No,
the,
I cannot read your screen. It's too small. Can you
oh,
make it bigger? No, you cannot anymore.
um,
I'm having a hard time. Oh, it's okay.
it's up
It's
here.
there.
I'm sorry. I can't. It's as big as it'll go. Unless yeah, I can't. Because I'm going directly from the book. But it's in that book. This is page,
Anatomy trains,
yeah, no, biomechanics.
biomechanics.
It's
Okay.
in chapter 5. If you look in chapter 5, it's insertional compression sites. So if you were to create a class, for example, that would protect against these compression sites, so if you wanted to protect these areas, you would do some kind of strengthening of these parts of the body that are affected. So if you're trying to protect the hamstring, you would do hamstring strengthening, contraction. Right? If you're trying to protect the Achilles tendon, you would do maybe heel lifts, right? Move into the calf. And then gluteus, maybe hip adduction. Typically, you want to do the opposite. So maybe standing with hand to foot, or balancing, maybe tree pose, putting the knee, off to the side, and abduction, and get that strong in the opposite position. And then knee flexion, so any of the standing balances, straight leg balances. Am I making sense, you guys?
Yeah.
And then hip adduction, you want to go abduction. So here you could do tree pose here. And then hip extension, you want to go the opposite, maybe like taking